Hello folks and welcome to another Legend Scale Transformers review. Today's unfortunate victims are a bit of a throwback to the earlier days of third-party Legends, Iron Factory's IF-EX06-10, the Asura Knights, aka the Dinobots. Not Dinobots, but Dinobots with a Y, which is what they originally called themselves in the IDW 2005 continuity. That's probably because they didn't always transform into dinosaurs. Formerly, they were just regular Cybertronian vehicles, and that is the idea behind this set of 5 right here. They are the pre-Dinobots, if that makes sense. They all come together in this one box here, which is nearly too big for my recording setup. I think what we'll do first is take a look at each of the robot modes individually, starting with EX06 Gram King Grimlock. Now, the first thing that jumps out about Grimlock to me is how much paint he has. Essentially, the only surfaces that aren't painted on him are this red waist piece and anything you can see in this dark grey colour. Everything else is coated in either metallic silver, gold, or gunmetal paint, which gives him a nice premium look. I do like the look of him. He's also got tons of moulded detail to capture that sort of IDW style. Got some vehicle parts visible, like these treads here, non-functional of course, and the triple exhausts on his back. The parts they're on tend to get in the way, that kibble there, but they are adjustable, so you can sort of get them out of the way when messing with them. If we zoom in on his head sculpt here, maybe adjust the light so you can see he's got painted red eyes there, and I don't know if you can make that out, but in the sunken section of his faceplate there, he's got little moulded in teeth. I think they could have used maybe some silver paint to help him stand out a bit better, but you know, it's still a nice detail that they added. He comes with 2 accessories, a sword with a red painted blade, and his classic double-barreled rifle, and these can either be held in his hands or you can plug them into any of the various 5mm ports dotted about in there. You know, you could store on his back, or you could plug it into the forearm. So you have plenty of options with those. That about covers it for Grimlock. Now it is time for EX07 Trident, aka Slag or Slug if you insist. Slag here isn't quite as bulky as Grimlock, but that does make him look a lot cleaner. Like, he really doesn't have any kibble whatsoever. Unless you count that, but you know, that's part of the design. He's got a little bit less paint in Grimlock too, but you know, still plenty of it. Got plenty of metallic silver there, and the gold, and a little bit of gunmetal in the abs, and the chest there. You can kind of see his dino mode coming through in that piece, sort of like the Triceratops head with the horns. Articulation wise, he does have a ball joint at his neck there, but you know, it's kind of hard to get to the head with that piece on the back. Got ball jointed shoulders, and a bicep rotation, elbow hinge, and rotating wrists. Got 360 degrees of waist rotation, and those same standard hip ball joints. Thigh rotation. He's got these kind of weird sideways knees. Those are transformation joints, but you know, I suppose you get some use out of them. Got some normal knees as well, and a little hinge at the heel there. Yeah, no functional ankle tilt, but he does have an angled foot to simulate that sort of wide stance. Slag has a few accessories too. He's got his own sword and blaster. He also has this little drill piece, which is essentially the 3rd Triceratops horn. And you can plug that into the back like this, if you want to store it. Or you can use any of the 5mm ports. You can sort of have that as a weapon. He also has these 2 little gap filler pieces for the alt mode. In robot mode, you can use them as wee blasters if you use your imagination. What I like to do is plug them into the side of this blaster, kind of bulks that up a bit, like that. But you know, you can use whatever ports you want. That's about it for Slag / Slug. Now it's time for EX-08 a.k.a. Sludge. Sludge is my personal favourite from this set. He's the largest of the 5. He's a little bit bulkier than Grimlock, although at least like 50% of that bulk is made up by these treads. Very nice clean back. He's got similar paint applications to the previous two, with the addition of this blue colour on the chest there. You zoom in on his head sculpt, and you see he's got this very oversized chin, almost like Bulkhead's chin. At least that's who it reminds me of. His articulation consists of a ball joint at the head there, ball joint and a hinge at the shoulder, bicep rotation, elbow hinge, and those rotating wrists. Then he's got a little gun under the arm here. That there is on a hinge. If we flip up this back panel, get access to the full waist rotation. Standard hip ball joints, thigh rotation, and knee. And then same again with those angled feet, although you can move both the toe and the heel as well. Sludge's accessories are quite interesting. He's got a sword like the rest of them, but then he also has this axe, which can be single or double bladed. And then he has this very large blaster. Now, there's any number of different ways you can equip these. We can hold the melee weapons, or you can store them in these ports in his back when they're not in use. Got ports on his shoulders and forearms as well. Then this large blaster, it can be disassembled into a whole bunch of little parts, and these can be reconfigured, into a smaller blaster. You can just give them that to hold, and then these other parts can be assembled into a hammer. And I assume this is why Iron Factory named him Siege Hammer for their copyright and avoiding name. And they can hold those like that. So that is about it for Sludge. So now we'll move on to EX-09, Gallerius, a.k.a. Snarl. Snarl has the least paint out of the 5. Which means that on the whole, he's got a lot of this unpainted grey. He's a little bit more dull. I mean, he's got plenty of paint on the torso here. It's just these limbs, I think, could have used a little bit more silver to help him blend in with the rest. Still got plenty of molded detail, including these suspiciously Stegosaurus-like plates, all painted in gold there. And his head sculpt is very similar to Sludge's, just without that massive chin. Articulation, the drill by now. Got a ball joint at the head there, hinge, and a ball joint at the shoulder. Bicep rotation and an elbow hinge. But then no wrist rotation on this guy, just with the way they're constructed. If we lift this panel, you get access to the waist rotation. Standard hip joints again, just ball joints with plenty of range. Thigh rotation and the knee bend. And then those same angled feet. No hinged heels or toes here. Snarl's accessories consist of the usual sword and blaster. And then I guess you could also consider these tail pieces as accessories, since they're detachable. You can wield that as a sword, maybe some kind of a claw weapon, or you can attach it to any of these 5mm ports, just like the rest. With Snarl out of the way, that leads us to the 5th and final bot in the set, EX-10 Crossbow, aka Swoop. Swoop is the most unique of the set, although I suppose that goes with the territory. His torso is blue plastic as opposed to red, and he's almost as much as paint as Grimlock, I think, if not more. Pretty much every surface that isn't blue or red is painted there. As you'd expect, he's a bit skinnier than the others, but you know, still follows that same general aesthetic. His distinctive head there is done in red plastic with painted blue eyes, and like the rest, he's got a silver face. Articulation, here we go again. We have a ball joint at the head. The wings have 2 hinges. Shoulders are on ball joints. And then you have a little bit of a butterfly joint as well there. We have very tight bicep rotation and a double hinge at the elbow. And just like Snarl, he doesn't have a wrist rotation. No waist rotation either, just the way the transformation is. Those same hips, thighs, and knees that all the rest have. And of course, as has become the theme, you have those angled feet to simulate a tilt. And you can adjust the toes and heels. Accessory wise, Swoop has his own sword and his 2 usual rocket weapons with painted red tips. These also have little flip out blades hidden inside, so you can, you know, use as melee weapons if you like, plug them in wherever you like. He's got an abundance of port, the 5mm ports just like the rest on his arms, legs and back, so you can plug those in a variety of different ways. Well, I believe that covers all of the robot modes. A very impressive looking bunch overall. Iron Factory definitely did not skimp out on the paint and details on these guys. Well, except maybe for Snarl. Before I got them, I didn't realise that all of their swords were actually unique. I thought they'd just be 5 copies of the same one. But no, they're all different, unique to the Dinobot. Another thing that surprised me was their size. You know, for some reason I expected them to be smaller, but they actually scale quite nicely. There is Ultimate Commander there, the Optimus Prime. Now, it is subjective, but I think this is a pretty good scale for this set with sort of a commander figure. They're all sort of close to his height, but then with thicker proportions. It gives them that extra bulk. I'm not sure if they had any connection with Wheeljack in IDW, but for G1's sake, there they are with the Iron Factory version of him. Now, Shockwave was sort of their arch nemesis in IDW for a while, but these guys kind of dwarf Iron Factory Bridge Watcher there. I'm not sure I can imagine him taking them on in a 5v1. We bring in MechFans Toys, Laser Wave there. I think he has a better chance of doing that with the extra height. Power of the Prime's Slash makes quite a good addition to the squad. I think she's a much better size for these guys here, as opposed to the Power of the Prime's Dinobots, but again, her colour scheme isn't a perfect match, so it's up to you. There they are with some newer dino figs, the War for Cybertron Fossilizers. That's kind of how they scale with a core class and a deluxe there. And I know we've already had Wheeljack, but we can't have a scale comparison without our old runabout here, and of course the Lego Stormtrooper. Now, to get these guys into their alt modes, what I'll do is I'll go through each transformation in the same order we just looked at the robot modes in. If you want to skip ahead, I don't blame you. There are 5 of them, so there'll be a timestamp you can jump to in the description. Starting with Grimlock. First, remove his weapons, set those to the side. Then you want to rotate his lower arms 180 degrees, and then the same with the hands so they're back to the original orientation. Then we flip up the shoulders and rotate the waist. Now I can turn them around and fold this back panel down. That will allow you to flip up the chest like so. And now this bit's a little bit tricky. What you want to do is close the 2 halves of the back around over the head, but you want to make sure this part is flush with the 2 panels, otherwise you won't be able to tab in his blaster. So this is not how you want it to sit. You need to make sure that's all the way back and bring these all the way forward so that it sits flush like that. Now you can use these little slots in here and the tabs on his sides to fix the arms in place. Where's that? There we go. And then you can, what you want to do with the feet is close the toes first and then the heels, otherwise the heels will get in the way of the toes. And then you open up the backs of the knees, and you want to collapse the legs and sort of tap them together at the same time. Finds the easiest way to do it, just like that. Right, final things to do are to rotate the exhaust pipes so they face rearward, and then bring in his blaster, tap that in using this little protrusion onto the top of the cab, like so. Now for Slag, again, remove all of his weapons. And then you want to open up his chest, and this will allow you to rotate the head down while flipping up the Triceratops head. I mean, it's really the truck cab of this mode. Now you want to open up the inner halves of the legs, like so, and this piece will flip down, this piece will flip up. Then you can bring in the gap filler blaster pieces, and oh, that's the wrong one. Plug those in on both legs. Now you want to hinge this back panel down and move the arms around into the space that's left. Spread out the legs and make a 90-degree bend at those sideways knee hinges. Now you want to use this joint here to rotate the treads 180 degrees so that they line up with the side of the body. Like so. You can then collapse the treads inwards, and these will tab in two places. They'll tab in back here and tab in to the shoulders here. That's how you'll know they're lined up correctly. A little bit fiddly, but it'll pay off in the end. There. Now the last thing you want to do, take the little drill piece and plug that in under the cab, your third Triceratops horn. And there you have Slug's vehicle, Slug's vehicle mode. 2 down, 3 to go. Take Sludge and remove all of his weapons. You want to make sure that the modular parts are assembled in the large cannon configuration for alt mode. Now open up his chest like we did with Slag and fold the head down all the way in so that closes back up. Now you want to close up the feet and heels nice and snug. Unlock the knees by pressing down on them. It should be an audible click and you'll see the shins pop up like this. So this will allow us to collapse the legs. We want these tabs to fit into, don't know if you see it, that slot in his crotch. So you want to tab those together and slot them in like that. If you have the hip piece rotated slightly, the legs may not collapse all the way. You'll know if they've gotten the whole way in if the shins close back up flush with the rest of his legs. Now you want to lift this skirt and rotate the waist 180 degrees before closing that back up. Rotate these lower arms and the wrists 90 degrees like that and fold them all the way back up into, you see there's sort of a cutout in the back of his shoulders. Those will fit snugly into there. You can then flip out these little guns. And the shoulders will tab into the main body using these tabs. And these you can't really see, but there's little slots at the side of the hinge. It can be quite a tight fit, especially on your first time doing it. But don't be worried, just go for it and they should slot in nice and tightly. Nothing's going anywhere there. Now take the large blaster that will tab in to the center port, like so, and there we have Sludge's alt mode. Snarl's turn. Unplug all of his bits first, including these tails on his back, and then flip up this cover on the back to cover his head. Om nom nom nom. Then bend the elbows and flip open the lower arms, if you can get your nails in there, to hide the hands inside the forearms. Now it's important that you do it in that order, elbows first, then hands, because if you do the hands first, it will lock the elbows and you won't be able to bend them. Now rotate the sides of his chest up and around, beside the head. Lift up this little panel and rotate the waist 180 degrees before closing that back up. Now you want to open up these panels, which will allow you to close the legs up like this. You can close those panels again and tab the legs together. Now you want to reposition the arms so that this little tab where the hand used to be lines up with this slot right here in the bottom of the foot. And they will clip into place. Same on the other side. So everything tapped together securely. Then you can bring back the tail pieces and they will tab into these little ports and cover the rear wheels. And that's Snarl done. Last one, take Swoop and remove all of his gear, as with the others. Then you want to open up the head and you want the crest to line up with this notch back here. Like so. And then fold the chest cockpit section down on its hinge and rotate the back so that the head fills that space. Now rotate the biceps 180 degrees and then you want to use the double hinge that the elbows are on to get them in this kind of lightning bolt orientation. Same on the other side. Then flip them up and use the shoulder hinges to rotate these around. There's a little tab on the wrist that will fit in these slots right here for each arm. Now you want to split the hips like so, as far as they can go. Then rotate the thighs, close the feet, and then you want to rotate these around so that these slots match up with these tabs in the wings. There's also a little protrusion, I suppose you can call it, on the thigh, and that will lock into this hole. So just watch us rotating that around, you won't be able to get complete clearance. But that's how it all lines up. Same on the other side, everything should lock into place securely. Then you can finish moving that cockpit into this position. Open up the wings Now you can fold these landing gear out of the shins and bring back the rockets to plug into the bottom of the wings. And that's Swoop done. So there we have them all in their alt modes. Now, some of them are a bit more ambiguous than the others. I guess that's always kind of the case with Cybertronian alt modes. Grimlock here, I'm not entirely sure what he's supposed to be. Maybe some kind of a truck. You can sort of see his hands there, poking out of the sides. And in all honesty, it does just look like a robot lying down. You know, you can see the outlines of the arms and legs. But for early Iron Factory, it's not too bad. There's no official place to store his sword, but you know, I kind of just slap it on the side like that there for storage. You can put it somewhere, but no official storage. Slag appears to be some kind of a mining vehicle with that Triceratops drill apparatus on the front. He's a bit of a brick. Again, the hands are kind of visible there, but the robot silhouette is hidden pretty well. Bit of a gap there at the back, but other than that, not too shabby. You can, of course, plug in his weapons in his various ports. Got access to the hands there, and plenty elsewhere. So yeah, no official storage, but you can store the weapons. Sludge is quite obviously a tank with his big old turret here. I believe that may be a nod to his future Dino mode, you know, long neck, long turret. Maybe not. Transformation is a bit basic. Actually, if you have Iron Factory's Tesserus figure from the DJD, it's essentially identical in terms of the transformation. And yeah, it's nothing exceptional, of course, but I think it does the job well enough. And then, as you'd expect, the extra bits, you can slap those on to any of his ports. You know, use the axe to give him an extra gun on his turret there, and that stores everything. Snarl's alt mode is interesting. He's the only one of the 5 to actually have rolling wheels there on the bottom. He's got 3 of them, sort of like a Cybertronian Reliant Robin. It's also got molded in treads, which is a bit of a confusing choice, but this mode is kind of just confusing as a whole. I'm not entirely sure what it's supposed to be. I see these Stegosaurus plates running down the center on the other side there, and I wonder, is this supposed to be like a single central caterpillar track? You know, there's a vehicle like that in Star Wars. I'm not sure what it's called. I'm sure there's some other franchises with a similar machine. That's what I'm going to assume this is, because otherwise I have no idea what it's trying to be. And yes, as with the other figures in the set, you can take the extra weapons and plug them in. Snarl only really has these 2 ports available, so what I like to do is this, plug the sword into the blaster like that, and plug the blaster in, but you can do whatever you like. Swoop definitely resembles his future Dino mode the most. You know, you can almost say that is a pterodactyl of sorts. It's really just a stylized jet. He's a bit bulky for a jet. You know, I think they maybe could have reduced that by allowing the legs to collapse, like some of the others. But, you know, again, it works well enough for what it is. For his sword, I would have liked to attach this to this port on his back, but the crest gets in the way of that, so what I do is take it and plug it into the side of the leg like that, under the wing, and you can barely even see it. That's a pretty good way to store it. So these guys have some pretty unorthodox alt modes, especially considering they're Dinobots. If you're not a fan of this kind of vague Cybertronian gimmick for the alt modes that is very common in IDW, you'll probably not like these. I don't mind them. I quite like how they have some subtle and not so subtle nods to the usual Dino modes. You know, you've got the 3 horns, the long neck, the armor plates, like all of Swoop. And kind of for that reason, Grimlock is my least favourite in terms of the alt mode. He's the least interesting. I can't really see any connection to the T-Rex. It's a little bit disappointing, but certainly not a major criticism. For some alt mode size comparisons, here they are with Iron Factory Optimus, Iron Factory Wheeljack, Power of the Primes Slash. There they are with the Fossilizers. Now, I know this may seem like heresy, but Run Amok was getting a bit jealous of Runabout, so I thought, why not have a wee palette swap? Here is Iron Factory Run Amok with a Lego Shadow Trooper. So, there you have the Iron Factory Dinobots. Now, this is an older set from quite a while ago, about 2016 I think, and I believe it was a fairly limited run too, so these guys have become quite highly sought after by collectors. When I originally got these guys, it was purely to be a completionist. I was not expecting to be wowed or even to like them all that much as figures, considering how far third-party Legends has come since. But I can sincerely say, these guys exceeded my expectations by a long shot. They've aged a lot better than other figures from the same era, and to my knowledge, they are unique in that they are still the only representations of these particular IDW designs. They originally retailed for about $90, which honestly would have been an absolute steal. But on the aftermarket, I believe the average price they tend to go for ranges between $200 to $250 for the full set. Now yes, that does seem like a lot, especially considering how small these guys are. But if you think about it, $40 to $50 per figure is pretty much the going rate for new third-party Legends of this size. So in my opinion, if you want these guys and you have an opportunity to get them, don't miss your chance. They're hard to find as it is, and they're only going to get harder as time goes on. I know Mauricio is looking for the set. Mauricio, if you're still watching, I do hope you manage to find some eventually. I can promise you will not be disappointed when you do. Well, that's about all I've got to say about these guys. Thank you for watching. Be sure to check out the other reviews on the channel, and goodbye.